Hello and welcome to Premodern Clerics. But before we get into the video, if you do like these, please do like, comment and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and I really appreciate your support. So thank you for that. Now clerics have a lot of very annoying protection abilities. They can be quite difficult to play against, especially in multiples. For example, if you have a True Believer plus Mother of Runes, that can be very difficult for some decks to beat. There's also a lot of protection from black and red clerics, meaning if your metagame is heavy in black or red, those can also be a super headache. There's also other nice abilities such as Life Gain or Glow Rider that makes non-creature spells cost more to play, but Weathered Wayfarer is an all-star here as it can search up multiple wastelands, destroying our opponent's mana base. It can also fetch a Core Haven, which is very nice against singular big creatures, and while Rishadan Port doesn't really see that much play, I thought I'd include it in the video anyway. So the main payoff for playing all clerics would be Master Apothecary. It's amazing against damage-based decks, and it can use its ability as soon as it comes into play. Rotlung Reanimator is also incredible as it turns any of our creatures that dies into a 2/2 zombie. If you splash black as well, it also gives you the option for great discard spells and some premium removal, most notably Vindicate. Clerics are quite small, so we're going to use some anthem effects to make them a bit bigger. Shared Triumph can give all clerics +1/+1, while Divine Sacrament is a kind of super anthem for white creatures, so it really depends on your build which one of these you'll prefer. We also have some interaction in the form of disenchant effects. Abolish is by far the most played because this isn't really a land intensive deck, so it's not really too much of a stretch to save a plains, so we can cast it for free. Most lists run one Reverent Mantra, which can either be used as a surprise way to save your creatures, or to get in for an alpha strike by giving them all protection from your opponent's blockers. Armageddon is amazing against control decks and many combo decks as well, so that's a must-have in many matchups. And of course we have 4 Swords to Plowshares, the premium removal spell. It's in our colour, so we definitely want 4. If you're playing black as well, you may also want Vindicate or some other removal. And I have actually seen some lists that play the Seal of Cleansing Parallax Wave combo, although this is definitely not a mainstream thing. In terms of our mana base, it really does depend on the list you're playing. Mono white decks will obviously play a lot of plains. The black white versions will play the relevant lands needed for that. In terms of non-basic lands, Core Haven is in basically every list, as is Wasteland. Some decks do play Mishra's Factory instead of Wasteland, but it's really up to you. In the sideboard, we have all the standard stuff, something for graveyard decks, something for artifacts, something for enchantments. We have more copies of Armageddon, depending on how many we're running in the main, potentially some Cataclysms, more stuff for against control. We also have copies of Worship, which are absolutely incredible against decks like Sly or Goblins, especially when combined with our protection from red creatures. And of course, if you're playing black as well, then you'll want to splash some black cards, such as Engineered Plague, or any other cards that you think will be useful. Now, this deck has a lot of options available to it already, but I thought I would just include a few more. Patriarch's Bidding is obviously very good against control. Cover of Darkness can be used in those kind of grindy creature matchups as a way to give our creatures pseudo unblockable. And Cabal Archon, it might or might not be useful, I just thought I'd throw it in there as an option. In terms of white cards, we have access to an Infinite Life combo, which might be useful with Daru Spiritualist and Shaman and Core. You can target the Spiritualist an infinite number of times with the Core's ability to give it an infinite toughness, and then sacrifice it to the Sanctum to gain infinite life. Celestial Gatekeeper is also great in those grindy kind of matchups because it does give us some card advantage and returns some very useful creatures from our graveyard to play. When playing the deck, essentially it's just a very fair creature deck, so we're just looking for hands that can curve out and have some kind of disruption depending on what we need. When playing the deck, our game plan really depends on the matchup we're against. In some matchups, we'll be looking to lock them out with a combination of annoying protection creatures. In other matchups, we'll be looking to try and hamper them with Weathered Wayfarer and lots of Wastelands. In other more sort of grindy creature-based matchups, we'll be using our very hard to block creatures plus anthem effects to try and beat them down. We'll probably also want this in combo matchups as well to try and beat them down as quickly as possible. And against control and some combo lists, we'll be wanting to just try and hit them with an Armageddon once we've got a few creatures in play. Master Apothecary can range from absolutely incredible to a very useless card. It really does depend on the matchup. And in general, this deck is trying to assemble lots of pieces, so it is a little bit vulnerable to sweepers. And that's where Rotlung Reanimator comes in. If we have a Rotlung Reanimator, we can just play all of our creatures onto the board, knowing full well that if a sweeper comes along, the Reanimator will do its job, everything will die, and then we'll have a huge army of zombies ready to attack, block, or do whatever we need. Against the deck, obviously non-damage based sweepers such as Wrath of God or Pernicious Deed are better because we have a lot of protection and damage prevention abilities. Cards like Engineered Plague, as all of our creatures do share a creature type, and combos that can either go over or around what we're trying to do without really caring very much. So Clerics is a mid-range deck, but it does lean more on the aggro side as we are a much more creature-based deck. Against certain matchups, we really will be locking them out with some combinations of our creatures, although generally we're just trying to beat down. So the strengths of the deck is it has main deck hate for many different matchups, especially red decks, as some of those protection from red creatures are good in their own right. It has many options and good mana, but I think the main reason to play this deck is it's fairly cheap money-wise to build, and it's something fun and a bit different. The downsides are it's a very fair deck, it can be very slow in certain matchups, and if you're just playing the mono white version, it really does lack disruption, so some combos can be difficult. So here's an example black white list, and here's an example mono white list. These decks can perform well in tournaments, but you don't really see it that often. If you enjoyed this video, please do like, comment and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.